At brunch, my daughter-in-law, Tiffany Vance, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Christmas is finally going to be peaceful without you." By evening, I'd called a realtor. A few days later, my lawyer's letter landed on her doorstep. This wasn't personal, it was war. The scenes that unfold will undoubtedly pull at your heartstrings, stirring emotions you might not expect. Prepare your heart to truly feel Eleanor's honest journey. And if her story resonates with you, please remember to like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments. My world was a perfectly choreographed dance, each step a beloved tradition. I never saw the small, almost imperceptible changes that began to alter the rhythm, one gentle push at a time. For decades, my home was the very heart of our family, not just walls and a roof. It pulsed with the laughter of my late husband, Arthur, and later, the joyous chaos of Robert's childhood and his own growing family. Every month, the anticipation of our family brunch filled me with purpose. I'd meticulously prepare everything: the heirloom china, the fresh flowers from my garden, the comforting aroma of my famous apple cinnamon streusel filling every room. This wasn't just cooking. It was a ritual, a continuation of the warmth and love that had always defined us. When Rob arrived with Tiffany and the children, Olivia and Caleb, my spirit would lift. Olivia, 7, and Caleb, 5, still raced in for their grandma's hug, their uninhibited joy a constant. Yet, around Tiffany, an almost imperceptible shift began to take hold. She was always impeccably composed, her politeness a veneer over something sharper. "Eleanor, dear," Tiffany would often suggest, her voice smooth as silk, "don't you think the children might prefer something a bit lighter than your famous Sunday roast? Perhaps a modern bistro dish would be more their speed." I'd find myself agreeing, eager to be a flexible, understanding grandmother, convincing myself that times were changing, and I should adapt. Rob, my son, would offer a hesitant nod, never quite meeting my eye. "Mom, Tiffany has a point." Kids these days, his words would trail off, a subtle tension in his shoulders. I'd make the new dish, the children would eat it, but I'd notice the faint disappointment on Rob's face, missing the familiar comfort he once craved. Then came the subtle rearrangements of our most cherished symbols. My collection of hand-painted ceramic ornaments, crafted by generations, slowly began to find themselves relegated to the back branches of the Christmas tree, overshadowed by sleek, monochromatic baubles Tiffany brought. "Just a fresh touch," she'd smile, hanging a pristine silver star right where Arthur and I used to place our shared angel. I'd tell myself it was progress, a modern evolution, but my fingers still instinctively sought out Rob's crooked clay angel, crafted in 2nd grade, now hidden deep within the boughs. I dismissed these quiet alterations as minor generational differences, telling myself I needed to adapt, that I was perhaps being overly sentimental. But a faint, insistent whisper in the back of my mind hinted at a melody slowly going off-key, a quiet discomfort I couldn't quite name, yet felt deep in my bones. That Sunday, the air in my kitchen felt thick with unspoken things, a deceptive calm before the storm. I just didn't know the storm would hit me, not the house. The brunch continued, a facade of normalcy. Olivia and Caleb chattered about their school friends, their innocent voices a stark contrast to the quiet tension I felt emanating from Tiffany. Rob spoke about a recent promotion, but his eyes darted constantly towards his wife, a nervous tick I hadn't noticed until now. There was a constant hum of expectation, a sense that something was about to shift, but I attributed it to my own growing unease, my over-sentimentality. After the last pancake was eaten and the children retreated to the living room, giggling over a new game, Rob excused himself to take a work call outside, leaving me alone with Tiffany. She moved to the kitchen window, gazing out at my meticulously kept rose garden, a faint, unreadable expression on her face. Her posture was straight, almost rigid, a stark contrast to the relaxed atmosphere I always strived for. "The roses are beautiful this year, aren't they?" I offered, desperately trying to fill the silence to find a bridge between us. She replied, a noncommittal sound, still not turning. "You know, Alina, I've been thinking about the holidays, Christmas specifically." A cold knot tightened in my stomach. Christmas. It was more than a holiday, it was the sacred cornerstone of our family's year. Generations of laughter, shared meals, and joyful chaos were woven into its fabric here. Even after Arthur passed, we kept every tradition alive, a testament to enduring love. What about Christmas? My voice came out smaller than I intended. Tiffany finally turned, her expression perfectly neutral, almost empathetic. It was the kind of look people wear when they're about to deliver news designed to hurt, yet framed as a kindness. She leaned against the counter, crossing her arms, creating a subtle barrier between us. "Well, Rob and I have been talking. We think it might be time for some changes. The kids are getting older, they have friends, and my mother has been asking when she'll finally get to host a Christmas. But we always have Christmas here," I said, the words a plea against an unseen current. "Precisely," she said, and a hint of pity, sharp and unwelcome, laced her tone. "You've been carrying this burden for so long, Alina. Don't you think it's time to let someone else take over? Time for you to relax and just be a guest for once." Burden. The word echoed in my mind, an ice-cold realization. She called our family Christmas, my life's joy, a burden. "I don't see it as a burden," I managed, my voice trembling slightly. "I love having everyone here. This house has always been the center of our family." Tiffany sighed, a delicate, almost theatrical exhalation, like a parent dealing with an uncomprehending child. "Alina, I know this is hard to hear, but sometimes holding onto traditions too tightly can actually damage a family. Things need to evolve. People need space to create their own memories." A cold dread seeped into my bones. "Are you saying I'm not welcome at Christmas?" "Of course not." She quickly protested, but her eyes, those carefully composed eyes, betrayed a different story. "We would never exclude you. It's just that maybe it's time for the immediate family to have some time together. You know, just Rob, me, and the kids. Christmas is finally going to be peaceful, without you there to worry about hosting and cooking and all the stress that comes with keeping up this big house." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. "Christmas is finally going to be peaceful without you." The way she said it, so calmly, so assuredly, as if my very presence was the source of all their disruption, all their stress. In that moment, standing in my own kitchen, surrounded by the echoes of 40 cherished Christmases, the truth, stark and undeniable, slammed into me. I had become unwelcome. The familiar warmth of my home turned to ice, each cherished memory now a sharp shard in my heart. I knew, with chilling certainty, that nothing would ever be the same. When the place you thought was your sanctuary becomes a battlefield, where do you turn? Alina's story has just begun to unfold, and her path ahead promises to be anything but peaceful. The words echoed in the sudden silence of my bedroom. each syllable a hammer blow shattering illusions I'd unknowingly built around myself for years. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed Arthur and I had shared for 30 years, and felt something deep inside me fracture. It wasn't just my heart, though that was certainly in pieces. It was the part of me that believed in unconditional family, in the unwavering sacredness of shared history. I heard Rob's distant goodbye, the slam of car doors, the engines starting. They were off to a birthday party I hadn't known about, just as I wouldn't be invited to Christmas. The house, usually a haven of warmth, now felt like a cold, echoing tomb, each memory a sharp, painful shard. As the afternoon light faded, my mind raced, stitching together fragments of moments I had dismissed, ignored, or simply rationalized away. It began subtly, almost 2 years ago, right after Rob and Tiffany's 3rd anniversary. Tiffany would propose small improvements. A leaner, she'd suggest with that saccharine smile, "Don't you think the kids would prefer pizza instead of your pot roast for Sunday dinner? Kids these days have such different tastes." I'd agree, eager to seem flexible, even as Rob would glance away, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes when he didn't smell the familiar aroma of slowly braised beef. Then came the Christmas ornaments. For 38 years, our tree wore the stories of our lives. The lopsided angel Rob made in 2nd grade, the glass snowflake from Arthur's and my honeymoon. Last Christmas, Tiffany arrived early, 3 large boxes of new, perfectly coordinated silver and white baubles in tow. "I thought we could refresh the tree this year," she announced. "These old ones are looking a bit worn." Worn, she called our family memories. I gently protested, holding up Rob's angel, "But these ornaments have history." She'd wave a dismissive hand. "Oh, we can keep a few of the sentimental ones. But don't you think it's time for something more sophisticated?" Rob would walk in, and I'd look at him, pleading silently for him to defend our traditions, but he'd just nod. "Those look nice, honey, very elegant," another subtle fracture. The photo albums were next. Decades of meticulously curated family life, filled with handwritten captions, milestones preserved. Olivia would ask to see Daddy when he was little, but Tiffany would quickly intervene. "Sweetheart, those old albums are so dusty and boring. Why don't we look at the pictures on my phone instead?" I'd watch Olivia's face fall, Rob always distracting her before I could speak up. The albums gathered dust, neglected. Then, the weekly phone calls from Rob became bi-weekly, then monthly. "Mom, I'm so busy with work lately." "You understand, right? Tiffany's been handling most of the family scheduling anyway." Tiffany handling the family scheduling. That should have been my first clue that I was being systematically, carefully removed. The final, chilling sign, though, was the way Rob started asking permission, not from me, but from Tiffany, for everything. "I was thinking of taking Mom to lunch next week," he'd say, then quickly add, "if that's okay with you, honey." Or, "the kids want to spend Saturday night at Grandma's house," followed immediately by, "but only if you don't have other plans for us." My own son, asking his wife's permission to spend time with his mother. The evolution, the calculated erasure, was right there in black and white. That night, alone in my kitchen, drinking coffee from the mug Rob had given me for Mother's Day years ago, I found his old phone. He'd left it when he upgraded last month, saying he'd pick it up later. I almost threw it away, but something urged me to turn it on, just to make sure nothing important was on it. The screen lit up, revealing dozens of recent text messages, most from Tiffany. I knew I shouldn't read them. I knew it was wrong. But I also knew whatever was in those messages might be the truth I had been too afraid to see. I opened the first conversation. My hands began to tremble violently. "Tiffany, how did she take it?" "Rob, not great, she looked pretty upset." "Tiffany, I told you she would make it dramatic, she always does." "Rob, maybe we should have been gentler about it." "Tiffany, gentle, Rob, we've been gentle for 3 years. She's not going to get the hint unless we're direct. Christmas needs to be about our family, not catering to a lonely old woman." Lonely old woman, that's how she saw me, that's how she talked about me to my own son. My stomach turned. I scrolled up, looking at older messages. "Tiffany, 6 months ago, we need to start setting boundaries with your mother. The kids are getting too attached to her stories about the old days. It's not healthy." "Rob, what do you mean?" "Tiffany, she's filling their heads with all this nostalgia about family traditions and how things used to be. They're going to grow up thinking her way is the only way. From 4 months ago, Tiffany, I've been thinking about the house situation." "Rob, what about it?" "Tiffany, when she's gone, we'll inherit it, right? It's in a great neighborhood. We could renovate it completely, make it modern." "Rob, Tiffany, she's not going anywhere anytime soon." "Tiffany, I know, but we should start planning. Maybe we could convince her to downsize now, move into one of those senior communities. Then we could move into the house and the kids could grow up there." I set the phone down and walked to the bathroom, where I threw up. Not from illness, but from the sheer shock of seeing my life discussed like a business transaction. They had been planning my removal for months, maybe years. The most painful part wasn't even Tiffany's manipulation, it was Rob's compliance. My son, whom I had loved and supported and sacrificed for, had chosen to let it happen. Every time I was excluded, every time a tradition was changed, every time Tiffany made a cutting remark, Rob had stood by and watched. Not just watched, he participated. He had become a stranger to me, and I hadn't even noticed when it happened. As the evening light faded, revealing the true darkness of their intentions, a different kind of strength began to solidify within me. The loving mother and grandmother had died that day. In her place, a strategist was born. The dawn that broke after that shattering night wasn't just another morning, it was the first day of my war, and I knew exactly what weapons I needed. The overwhelming grief that had threatened to drown me had solidified into a cold, sharp resolve. They wanted peace without me. They would get it, but on my terms. By 9 a.m., I was on the phone with Brenda Adams, the realtor. Her voice held a note of surprise. "Eleanor, I didn't expect to hear from you so soon. I want to move fast, Brenda," I told her, my voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil I'd just endured. "How quickly can we get the house on the market?" She spoke of market analysis, photos, listings taking weeks. "I don't have a few weeks," I cut in. "I want it listed by Friday." "That's only 4 days away." She paused, hesitant. "Are you sure you don't want to think about this? Selling a family home is a big decision." "I've already thought about it," I said, and for the first time all day, I meant every word. "For longer than you might imagine. Price it to sell, Brenda. I don't care about getting top dollar. I care about getting it sold." After hanging up with Brenda, my next call was to Attorney Lewis, who had handled Arthur's estate. "Eleanor," he greeted warmly, "how are you holding up? I know the holidays can be difficult." "Actually, Lewis," I said, "I'm calling about my will. I need to make some significant changes. I want to revoke the current will entirely and create a new one." There was a stunned silence on the other end. He asked for my reasons, his tone cautious. Let's just say I've learned some things about my family that have changed my perspective on inheritance. He offered an appointment for that very afternoon. I'll be there, I confirmed. I spent the morning walking through my house, seeing it not as the loving home where I had raised my son, but as the asset Tiffany was so eager to inherit, the property they planned to renovate and modernize once I was gone. Every room told a story, but apparently those stories didn't matter to the people I had written them for. I looked at the family photos on the mantle, Rob's graduation, his wedding, pictures of Olivia and Caleb. In every family photo from the past 3 years, I noticed something chilling. Tiffany was always positioned at the center, with Rob and the children arranged around her. I was either on the edge of the frame or missing entirely. She had been erasing me for years, one photo at a time. At 2 p.m. in Lewis's office, I laid out my new wishes. I want to leave the house to the local children's hospital. They can sell it and use the money for their programs. His eyebrows shot up. And your other assets, your savings, investments. I want to set up a scholarship fund for children who want to study horticulture, I explained. Gardening has always brought me joy. Maybe it will bring joy to others. For my personal belongings, I decided I'll give Olivia and Caleb each a small trust fund they can access at 18, enough to help them, not spoil them. The rest, I'll donate what has value and keep what matters to me personally. Lewis asked if I was doing this out of anger. No, I said finally, I'm doing this because I've realized that the family I thought I was providing for doesn't actually exist. Rob has made it clear he doesn't need me or want me in his life. So I'm choosing to invest in people who might actually appreciate what I have to give. He suggested taking time to reconsider. I've been thinking about it for years without realizing it, I told him. Every time I was excluded, every time a tradition was changed without consulting me, every time I was made to feel like a burden in my own family, I was actually thinking about this. The for sale sign went up on a Tuesday morning. I watched from my kitchen window as Brenda's assistant hammered it into my front lawn, and a strange mixture of sadness and liberation washed over me. This house had been my world for 40 years, but it had also become my prison. By lunchtime, the phone began to ring. Mrs. Davis, my next-door neighbor, her voice buzzing with curiosity. Eleanor, I just saw the sign in your yard. Are you really selling? I calmly confirmed it, deflecting her questions about where I'd go. Small towns have no secrets, only delayed announcements. By 4:30 p.m., the call I knew was coming finally arrived. Mom. It was Rob, his voice laced with confusion and panic. Mrs. Davis just called Tiffany. She said there's a for sale sign in your yard. Please tell me she's mistaken. She's not mistaken. My voice was steady, a stunned silence. What do you mean she's not mistaken? I mean I'm selling the house, Rob. You're selling the house, he repeated, as if trying to translate a foreign language. Why, this is the family home. This is where I grew up. Where Olivia and Caleb come for holidays. Where Olivia and Caleb come for holidays, I echoed softly. Not where they come to see their grandmother, where they come for the house itself. Actually, according to Tiffany, they won't be coming here for holidays anymore. Christmas is going to be peaceful without me, remember? Another silence. Mom, we've talked about this. That was a misunderstanding, was it? I countered, a cold edge to my voice, because I found some text messages that suggest otherwise. I heard his sharp intake of breath. What text messages? The ones on your old phone, I replied. The one you left here last month. Very interesting reading, Rob. I learned quite a bit about what you and Tiffany really think of me. You went through my phone. His voice cracked, like it used to when he was a teenager caught in a lie. Your old phone that you abandoned in my house. Yes. And I learned quite a bit about what you and Tiffany really think of me. The context where Tiffany calls me a lonely old woman. The context where you discuss convincing me to move to a senior community so you can have my house. The context where you plan to cut me out of holidays and family events because it's your turn to be the center of attention. Each word I spoke seemed to hit him like a physical blow. Those conversations were taken out of context. He blurted out. Were they? Which part was out of context? The part where Tiffany said I needed to find my own life instead of living through yours. Or the part where you agreed that I'd had 40 years to be the center of attention, and now it was time for me to step back. I heard his heavy breathing on the other end of the line. A woman's voice cut in from the background, Tiffany's, telling him to put the phone on speaker. Eleanor, Tiffany's voice came through the line, syrupy, sweet as always. I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding, Tiffany, I stated, my voice cold and clear. I understand perfectly. Those text messages were private conversations between a husband and wife, were they? You were working through some family dynamics. I scoffed. Is that what you call plotting to exclude me from holidays and planning to inherit my house? We would never plot against you. You called me a lonely old woman. Tiffany said, her voice finally losing its sweetness, tinged with genuine frustration. Do we? I asked, a bitter laugh escaping me, because you seem to mean it quite clearly. You also seemed to mean it when you told Rob that Christmas needed to be about your family, not catering to me. When you said I'd had my time being the center of attention. When you said it was time for me to find my own life. Silence. The house will be sold within 2 weeks, I continued. The new owners are lovely people with young children. I think they'll be very happy here. Mom, Rob's voice was pleading now. Please don't do this. We can work things out. There's nothing to work out, Rob, I replied. You've made your feelings clear. Both of you have. I'm simply responding accordingly. What do you want from us? Tiffany demanded, her voice now openly angry. I don't want anything from you, I said, and a profound sense of liberation settled over me. That's the point. I don't want to be where I'm not wanted. I don't want to fight for a place in my own family. I don't want to pretend that being excluded from Christmas is somehow a kindness. I'm too old and too tired to play those games. I'm going to live my life on my own terms, something I should have started doing a long time ago. I hung up before either of them could respond. 20 minutes later, Rob's car pulled into my driveway. Through the window, I could see him and Tiffany sitting in the front seats, locked in what looked like an intense argument. Finally, they got out and walked to my front door. I let them ring the doorbell twice before I answered. We need to talk, Rob said, his face pale. I think we've said everything we need to say. Please, Mom, just let us come in. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let them into the living room, where 40 years of memories lived in photo frames and furniture arrangements. Tiffany looked around the room as if seeing it for the first time, not as a home, but as an asset whose value she was finally calculating. We don't want you to sell the house, Rob said. I know you don't. Then why are you doing this? I looked at my son, this man I had loved more than my own life, and felt something settle into place inside me. Because, Rob, you taught me that love is supposed to be unconditional. But apparently, that only applies when I'm the one doing the loving. The silence after their departure was deafening, yet it wasn't empty. It was filled with the quiet hum of my newfound resolve, a melody of freedom I hadn't realized I craved. The tears I should have shed were gone, replaced by a cold, clear determination. My house, once the center of my universe, was now merely an asset, ready to serve a new purpose. The sale of the house moved with remarkable speed. Brenda Adams had an offer within days. A young couple with 2 small children and a golden retriever, relocating from out of state. They walked through my rooms with wide eyes, not calculating value, but imagining birthdays in the backyard and Christmas mornings in the living room. They saw it for what it was truly meant to be, a vibrant home for a loving family. Handing over the keys to them just 8 days later felt less like a loss and more like a profound act of liberation. It was proof that what I had built would continue to foster joy, even if it wasn't for those I had originally intended. Meanwhile, Rob and Tiffany tried everything. First came the furious phone calls, accusatory and laced with disbelief. Then the guilt trips. How could you do this to your own son? This is the family home. When that failed, the threats began. If you sell, you won't see your grandchildren. My resolve remained unshaken. They didn't understand that the old Alina, the one who would have crumbled under such pressure, was gone. Finally, they arrived at my doorstep, bringing Olivia and Caleb with them, a blatant attempt to use the children as leverage. Olivia's eyes were wide with confusion. "Grandma," she whispered, "Daddy says you're giving our house to strangers." I knelt, taking her small hands in mine, looking straight into her innocent face. "Sweetheart, this was my house, and now I'm sharing it with a new family that has little children just like you. But where will we have Christmas?" Caleb asked, his lower lip trembling. "You'll have Christmas wherever your mommy and daddy decide to have it," I told him gently. "And it will be wonderful." Above his head, my eyes met Tiffany's. Her face was a mask of calculated concern, trying to gauge if I was weakening. "The children are confused," she said, her voice strained. "They don't understand why you're doing this." "The children are confused," I replied, my voice calm but firm, "because you told them this house belonged to them. But it never did. It belonged to me. They left, defeated, the silence they left behind now truly peaceful. After they were gone, I continued the monumental task of packing. 40 years of accumulation, a lifetime of memories, all to be sorted. But the process was liberating, not overwhelming. Each item I boxed up or donated felt like another weight lifted from my shoulders. The truly important things, a Arthur's worn Bible, a few pieces of my mother's jewelry, my wedding album, were carefully set aside. The rest went to charity. The antique china set that Tiffany would have summarily sold, now destined for a young couple starting their own marriage. The books to the local library, the linens and household items to a women's shelter. Everything found a new home where it would be appreciated, truly valued. With each packed box, each donation, a weight lifted. My past, once a gilded cage, now offered its true gift, the wide-open sky of an unknown future. It was time to drive west. Leaving behind the echoes of my old life, I drove west, not knowing what awaited me, but knowing, with a deep certainty, that I was finally driving towards myself. The vast desert landscape of Arizona, near Sedona, was unlike anything I'd ever known, rugged, serene, and profoundly liberating. My rented apartment was small, but it was bathed in light, with a patio where I could start a new garden and windows that framed red rock formations instead of suburban streets. For the first time in decades, I woke up each morning with no one to cook for, no one to worry about, no schedule to maintain except my own. I joined a hiking group for seniors and discovered muscles I hadn't realized I possessed. I enrolled in a pottery class, learning that my hands, which had spent years caring for others, were also capable of creating beautiful things for myself. I volunteered at a local animal shelter, finding that puppies don't care about family drama or inheritance disputes. They just want someone to scratch behind their ears and tell them they're good dogs. My days were full, my heart surprisingly light, filling with genuine contentment. 3 months after I moved, a letter arrived. Not a text message, not a voicemail, but an actual, handwritten envelope from Rob. "Mom," it began, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. I've had time to think about everything that happened, and I realize that Tiffany and I treated you terribly. We took you for granted, and we excluded you from decisions that affected your own life. I was so focused on keeping peace in my marriage that I forgot about keeping peace with my mother." He went on to reveal the cracks in his own life. "Tiffany and I are having problems. She's angry that you sold the house, and she blames me for not stopping you. She says I should have fought harder to make you see reason. But the truth is, Mom, I think you did see reason. I think you saw that we were planning a life that didn't include you, and you decided to plan a life that didn't include us. I miss you. The kids ask about you all the time. Olivia keeps asking when we're going to visit you in your new house, and I don't know what to tell her because I don't even know where you live." He ended by asking for my address for the children, not for himself. I read the letter 3 times, sitting on my patio as the sun set behind the red rocks. Part of me felt a quiet satisfaction that Rob was finally seeing the truth about his marriage and his choices. Part of me felt a pang of sadness that it had taken losing me for him to realize what he had lost. But mostly, I felt at peace. I wrote back to Rob, but not to reconcile our past. I sent him my address and told him that Olivia and Caleb were welcome to write to me, and that I would write back. I told him about my new life, about the pottery class and the hiking group, and the desert garden I was planning for spring. I didn't tell him that he was welcome to visit. I didn't tell him that I forgave him. I didn't tell him there was a path back to the relationship we used to have, because there wasn't. Some relationships can be repaired after betrayal. Others can only be replaced with something new and different. Rob would have to earn his way back into my life, if that was even possible, and it would take more than a letter and some marital problems to make that happen. 6 months later, I received my first letter from Olivia. It was written in careful second-grade handwriting and decorated with crayon drawings of desert flowers. "Dear Grandma," it said, "I miss you. Daddy says you live near Big Red Rocks. I would like to see the red rocks someday. Are you happy? I hope you are happy. Love, Olivia." I wrote back immediately, telling her about the rocks and the desert flowers and the roadrunners that visited my patio each morning. I sent her pictures and pressed flowers from my hikes. She wrote back 2 weeks later, and our correspondence began. Caleb started writing too, and slowly, carefully, I began building new relationships with my grandchildren, not the same relationships we had before, when I was part of their daily lives, but different ones. Ones based on letters and photographs and small gifts sent through the mail. Ones that belonged only to us, with no interference from their parents. A year later, Rob called to tell me that he and Tiffany were getting divorced. "She never got over the house," he said. "She blamed me for not fighting harder to keep it. She said I chose you over our marriage. Did you? I asked. I tried to choose both, he said, his voice heavy. But I realize now that I should have chosen you a long time ago. I didn't tell him that it was too late for that choice to matter. I didn't tell him that I was happier without him than I had been with him. I didn't tell him that his divorce was just confirmation of what I had always known, that Tiffany had never loved our family, only what she thought she could gain from it. Instead, I told him I was sorry he was going through a difficult time, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't want him to suffer. I just didn't want to be responsible for preventing his suffering anymore. Would you be willing to see the kids sometime? He asked. They miss you. Send them for a week next summer, I said, if they want to come. They did want to come. Olivia and Caleb spent a week with me in Arizona, hiking and swimming and learning to make pottery. They met my friends, played with the shelter dogs, and helped me plant vegetables in my new garden. On their last night, as we sat on the patio watching the stars appear in the desert sky, Olivia asked me a question that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. Grandma, are you lonely without us? I thought about how to answer honestly without burdening her with adult problems. Sometimes I miss you, I said finally, but I'm not lonely. I have friends here, and I have hobbies that make me happy. And I have letters from you and Caleb which always make me smile. Good, she said, snuggling closer to me. I want you to be happy. I am happy, sweetheart, I replied. I'm very happy. And for the first time in years, that was completely true. I had lost a family that never really valued me, but I had gained a life that was entirely my own. I had given up being needed by people who took me for granted, and I had discovered being wanted by people who chose to include me. At 70 years old, I had finally learned the profound difference between being loved and being used. And that knowledge, more than any house or inheritance, had truly set me free. Eleanor found her peace, but her journey wasn't easy. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does family truly mean to you, and when is it time to choose yourself? Share your heart, your thoughts, in the comments below.